Did you know that Alice's abilities have been completely reworked to enhance gameplay strategies? Imagine a version of Alice with no more mana restraints, new stacking mechanics, and an ultimate that gives her control immunity and massive AoE damage. If you're one of these players who struggled using Alice to carry, this revamped version might just flip everything upside down. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see how to dominate with the new Queen of Blood. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News, your go-to spot for all things MLBB update and strategy. Today we're diving deep into the revamped Alice, Moonton's bold rework of the Queen of Blood that launched September 17, 2025. If you're a mage tank enthusiast or someone who loves versatile play, mastering this new Alice could skyrocket your win rate. Let's explore what's changed, why it matters, and how you can use her to dominate the Land of Dawn. For years, Alice has been one of those heroes that looks amazing on paper but feels inconsistent in real matches. Players love her identity as a sustain-heavy mage who can dive into the heart of battle. But actually pulling that off has always been the tricky part. One of the biggest hurdles has been her resource management. Old Alice relied heavily on mana, and her abilities chewed through it quickly. That meant many players found themselves holding back, unable to make aggressive plays because they were afraid of running dry in the middle of the fight. Then there's the problem of sustain versus timing. Alice's healing was powerful, but only if you hit the right targets at the right time. Commit too early and you risk being locked down before you could lifesteal back. Wait too long and your teammates might have already be gone. This balancing act often left even experienced players second-guessing every dive. Her positioning also made her high risk, high reward. To deal damage and trigger her lifesteal, Alice needed to be right in the middle of enemies. But the closer she got, the easier it was to get bursted down or chain controlled before she could even activate her ultimate. Many players felt like they were being punished for trying to play her the way she was designed. And finally, there was the issue of late game impact. While Alice could snowball if played correctly, she often struggled against tanky comps or heroes with heavy mobility. In long games, her damage sometimes felt underwhelming, and her healing wasn't always enough to keep up with burst-heavy metas. These pain points such as resource strain, risky positioning, fragile sustain, and fading impact made Alice a challenging pick. The rework is Moonton's direct answer to these frustrations, but mastering the new kit brings its own learning curve. So, what makes the new revamped Alice different? And more importantly, how do you play her without looking like you're just throwing yourself into the enemy team hoping for miracles? The answer lies in her new rhythm. Moonton has completely rebuilt her around a system of stacks, sustain, and well-timed bursts. And once you get that flow right, she feels like an unstoppable vampire queen waltzing through the Land of Dawn. The biggest change is that Alice has ditched her mana bar. Yes, you heard that right. No more crying because you're out of mana when you desperately needed to ult. Instead, she now builds crimson stacks whenever she hits enemies. At 2 stacks or more, her passive Blood Banquet automatically activates, dealing area damage and healing her over time. Picture it like hosting a dinner party where your enemies are the unwilling guests. The moment you've set the table, the feast begins, and the longer you keep people around, the more you heal. This alone makes Alice feel fresher and more aggressive. Instead of constantly checking a blue bar, you're managing momentum. Every poke, every trade, every blink builds towards a crescendo where your passive keeps you alive while you suck the fight dry. But it also means downtime is dangerous. If you let those stacks fade, you're suddenly back to being just another squishy mage with no safety net. Her first skill, Crimson Gleam, sets the pace. It's a straight line projectile that you can recast to blink to its location, even through walls. Think of it as tossing out a grappling hook, then yanking yourself towards it. Stylish if you land it, embarrassing if you don't. Used well, it's not only for mobility, but also your setup tool. You can poke enemies from a distance, then blink in when your stacks are primed to trigger Blood Banquet in the middle of their team. Miss the recast window though, and you're left looking like someone who pressed the elevator button but forgot to step inside. Now combine that with her second skill, Doom Waltz. This is Alice spinning in a bloody circle, slowing everyone around her while dealing damage. On its own, it's a solid AoE, but when your passive is active, Doom Waltz really shines. It scorches enemies for bonus damage and heals Alice even more. This is your sustain button, your lifeline, your way of saying, "Surprise, I'm not dead yet." The trick is making sure you don't waste it without your passive. A Doom Waltz without Blood Banquet is like dancing without music. It's awkward and much less effective. And then there's the crown jewel, Throne of Ruin, her new ultimate. Alice channels her power, gaining control immunity and 50% damage reduction while charging up. After about a second and a half, she slams down with massive AoE damage that scales with both her magic power and bonus HP, and it immobilizes enemies caught in the blast. Sounds terrifying, right? Because it is. But here's the catch. While she's channeling, Alice slows herself by 50% and can't use her Doom Waltz. It's like putting on a seatbelt before a crash. You're safe for a moment, but you're not going anywhere fast. This creates a fascinating high-risk, high-reward dynamic. If you drop Throne of Ruin in the middle of the enemy team after blinking in, you're basically declaring, "This is my zone now." The Immobilize buys your team precious time to collapse, and the damage swings fights really hard. But misjudge the timing or drop it when enemies can simply dash out, and you're left waddling like a slow vampire duck, waiting to get punished. So how do you string this all together? The smoothest combo is to poke with Crimson Gleam, build up your stacks, blink in at just the right moment, and immediately trigger Doom Waltz while Blood Banquet is active. This gives you damage, sustain, and pressure all at once. Then once enemies are grouped up and distracted, pop Throne of Ruin to lock them down and finish the job. Done right, the whole sequence feels like conducting a bloody orchestra. First violins, which are your poke, then drums, your AoE spin, and finally the crashing cymbals, which is your ultimate. What really makes her dangerous now is how sustain and control weave together. In small trades, Blood Banquet plus Doom Waltz means Alice can shrug off poke damage and stay healthy for the next wave. In teamfights, the control immunity from her ultimate protects her from being instantly CC'd out of existence, while the Immobilize ensures her teammates can follow up. She's no longer just a niche sustain mage, she's a frontline disruptor with real late-game presence. But here's the strategy that turns panic into triumph. You start by tossing out Crimson Gleam, poking while casually building stacks. The enemy thinks you're just harassing, but you're setting the stage. The moment your passive Blood Banquet kicks in, you blink straight into their backline with Scarlet Shadow, and instantly, Doom Waltz begins its bloody dance, dealing damage and slowing everyone in the radius. With Blood Banquet feeding your sustain, their marksman's health drops faster than their confidence. And here comes the real showstopper, Throne of Ruin. You trigger it in the middle of the chaos, gaining control immunity right as their support tries to stun you. Instead of being locked down, you become a walking AoE nuke. The slam hits, immobilizing multiple enemies, and suddenly what looked like your team retreating has turned into a full-on counter-engage. Your fighters collapse in, your assassin cleans up the stragglers, and you, Alice, walk out at half HP while enemies spam the surrender button. That's the magic of the revamped Alice. She's not just about sustain anymore. She's about timing and creating fight-changing moments. Use her passive to keep yourself alive, her blink to choose your entry point, and her ultimate to lock the fight in your favor. Master that rhythm, and Alice becomes the difference between losing a Lord fight and winning the game outright. So to recap, the new Alice thrives on stacks instead of mana, weaving Crimson Gleam, Doom Waltz, and Throne of Ruin into a rhythm that fuels her sustain and damage. She's designed for bold initiations, clutch turnarounds, and punishing overconfident enemies. But she rewards precision. Mistime your combos and you're toast. Master her flow though, and Alice isn't just viable. She's a game changer. So, what do you think of the revamped Alice? Drop your favorite strategies, combos, or even your funniest fails in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And if you want more guides like this, check out our other hero breakdowns right here on Mobile Legends News. Till next time!